in that surrender, there's no projection of what you think will happen once you surrender. There's no projection, because even the best projection is still from the mind, which is conditioned from the past. So even when we project what will happen when we surrender, the best projection will still be a limited version rooted in our past conditioning, our ego, our identity in some way, shape, or form. But when we truly surrender, I think there is a true expansiveness of, I have no freaking idea. I have no idea what the hell will happen on the other side. All I know is life is leading me here.
Welcome to Letting Go and the Greatest Secret, where we explore the end of your suffering and the beginning of lasting happiness. I'm Hale Dwoskin, and today I'll be interviewing Kute Blackson. Kute Blackson is an inspirational speaker, transformational teacher, and the author of The Magic of Surrender. He's a member of the Transformational Leadership Council and has spoken at countless events around the world. Kute's mission is to awaken and inspire people to access inner freedom, live authentically, and fulfill their true life's purpose. Let's start out with something basic. In your experience, what is the essence? Oh, I don't know how basic this is. We'll see where it goes. What is the essence of truth, or of that awareness that you are, I am, and all is? How would you, what is pulled from you to say about that?
I mean, if I were to be honest,
please.
What is pulled from me to say about that, I don't know if I would really be able to say anything.
Right.
I mean, like that's the most authentic, like, I don't know if I could, I don't know if I could really say anything to you, because the feeling is beyond feeling, it's beyond words, it's beyond definition, it's beyond conversation. The real essence is beyond any definition of sort. And so it's almost as though, at least in response to your question, the only authentic response that emerges would, it just feels like we would just sit here.
That's right. I set that up. I apologize. I made that. I invited something that really, it can't be described in words.
Yeah, it just feels like, wow, it's just, nothing was coming, and it was just and it was beautiful. It was really beautiful to feel, but that's the truth.
No, I appreciate it, because when we talk about truth, we're never actually talking about truth. Yeah. We're talking about pointers towards the truth.
Yes.
Or the effects on the body-mind world that happen coming as truth is discovered in that particular body-mind mechanism. But the truth itself is wordless, it's timeless, spaceless, dimensionless, and any attempts to describe it always fall short. So let me rephrase that a little differently. In your experience, how has discovering that awareness that is wordless affected your experience of living?
I don't know if, I'll be honest, I don't know if I've discovered it. I don't know if I've discovered it like as a moment of like, oh, I discovered it. And it never felt like there was a moment of discovering it. It felt like, how do I describe? It felt like, like remembering, like, oh yeah, that was more the feeling, like, oh
Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes, yes,
yeah, oh yeah, that yeah, like that. That's how it felt.
yes.
And for me, there were moments growing up as a child, with my father being a healer and a minister and had 300 churches and very spiritual, mystical character. I call my father an African Sai Baba meets Muktananda meets TD Jakes, all rolled into one. That was my dad. Okay.
Yeah.
And so there were different kind of, I guess you could say, experiences that I had growing up.
Mhm.
But I remember there was one time I was in Rishikesh, and maybe it was in my 20s somewhere, and it felt like I remember looking at the ocean, looking at the river, and everything was just flowing, and I dissolved.
Mhm.
And there was no separation between the sense of Kute, I dropped away, river dropped away. It was just, everything was one.
Mhm.
And how you said how it shifted from that moment, there was a deep, I remember once I kind of opened my eyes, walking through the whole town, feeling in the physical, such a depth of love for everybody. And it felt like a cosmic joke. This feeling of, why is everyone so serious? And why is everyone so, because like, I'm me and I'm you, and we're just one. Can't you see it? Just the cosmic joke of this sense of separate identity. It just felt so funny,
Yeah.
and beautiful. And how comes we're not realizing that there's only one of us here,
Right, right.
behind these seeming masks,
Yes.
and the sense of like one intelligence living us all,
Yes.
and this one being, one man, one person show that is playing us all. and
Yes.
and so for me, that there was a real opening that was almost also, I don't want to say excruciatingly beautiful, but it felt more than my physical body's capacity to even process,
Yes.
of the feeling of love,
Yes.
the oneness feeling of love, feeling like we're not separate. It was like just just love. And
Yes.
so that feeling of connectivity, has, from that moment, has really opened up. It opened something up in that realm for me. Yeah.
Mm. Beautiful. and the other thing you said, oh, that's, there's this misconception that many people, some people have experiences like you did that are very profound and very noticeable, but many people it's more gradual, and it is more of an, oh, that.
Yeah.
And that's natural. That's always been here. That's
Yeah.
what I am, what all is.
Yeah.
And people get confused because they think that they haven't gotten it because they don't have an experience like you had in Rishikesh. But those type of experiences are rare for most people. What most people experience is just this gradual falling away of the sense of being a separate individual,
Yeah.
and a gradual dawning of this love and connectedness and unicity that is already right here, right now. And it doesn't feel like, it feels like, oh, this is what's always been here. So that's perfect. Thanks. So you have a new book.
Yeah. The magic of surrender.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your book.
This was not the book I thought I was going to write. That's the funny thing. I
get it.
I had all these ideas, if I'm honest, of what I thought I was going to write, Hale. I had an entire wall with great ideas. Maybe someday they'll become books. And I was bouncing these ideas, books I thought would sell, books I thought would do well, books I thought I was inspired by, books I thought I should be writing. And an entire whiteboard full of these great ideas and great titles and great concepts. And I was kind of meditating on it for a moment, and for a few days, actually, and nothing came into focus. And I remember when I was looking at this wall of writing and ideas and concepts, it was as though what emerged just came, boom, was surrender. That was surrender. Like, that's the book. The word surrender, boom, popped out. And it felt as though the soul of the book just revealed itself. And even though that wasn't the book I thought I was going to write, this was the book that was, it was the book that was seeking to be written more than anything. And so for me, part of the process of surrender, in a sense, letting go of, trying to control what we're seeking to express, really started with just allowing the essence of the book to just reveal itself and allow myself to be guided by what was seeking to happen. And so I don't really feel like I wrote the book so much. I just feel like I was more of a vessel for the book to be written through. And so I felt when I just kind of allowed the book to do its thing, that's when the kind of concept of the idea, the form, the structure, in terms of how is this concept seeking to be delivered to the readers, then the stories and the ideas and the concepts and everything just kind of started to flow. And it was nothing like I thought. The book wasn't what I thought. The title wasn't what I thought. The book cover wasn't what I thought. When the publisher said, here's your book cover, I'm like, hell no. And I was like, well, okay, step back. I was like, this is what it is. This is what it's meant to be, And so sometimes we have these ideas of what we think something is or going to be or should be, and it really is something else when we kind of just get ourselves out of the way. And so, yeah, the magic of surrender is just I wanted to somehow simplify this idea of surrender for, I don't want to say the average person, but just the everyday person. That would be a better word. The everyday person. The person that wasn't particularly on the spiritual path or intentionally, consciously seeking or, seeking a spiritual practice. But I want to say, how do I make surrender accessible as a beginning into someone's journey, an evolutionary journey? And so for me, the idea of surrender being letting go of trying to control everything, or at least the idea, the illusion of control, letting go of this idea of trying to control everything and forcing life into some notion and idea of what we think it should be based on some preconceived notion of who we think we are. And when we stop trying to manipulate life and project life and push life in a very kind of contrived direction, what happens, you know? And so I think in our culture, this idea of surrender is as weak or as, you know, passive, weak. If you surrender, you're going to be homeless, or it's a scary thing, or you're going to have to sell everything, go to the Himalayas. And it's like, we're kind of sold this notion. And I think even in our personal growth culture, we're sold this idea of like, you know, you got to make shit happen.
Right.
You have to be the one that does it and drives it and pushes it and personal power it and, you know, make your way through life. And I just feel like it's such a limited way of living.
Oh, totally.
It's such a limited way of manifesting and living and creating and goal setting that way, that sure, you can live a good life, you can manifest that way, but I think what we end up manifesting ends up being such a limited version of what truly can unfold and can be when we truly surrender and let go and allow. And so even in terms of goal setting, this idea of many times the goals that we think that we're setting and to manifest, we might manifest them sometimes, you know, many times we do, only to be left with this feeling of emptiness, or the sense of, well,
yes,
is this it? Is this all? I thought this was going to make me happy and it hasn't. And sometimes when you get what you thought was going to make you happy, it's even worse, because before that moment, there was always this false sense of hope that that thing was going to make you happy.
Right.
You know, and now you have it, and now you've manifested it to realize, shit, this doesn't really make me happy. And so I think that's actually progress in a certain sense.
Evolution. It is. I agree that that's total progress, because as long as we think anything is going to make us happy, we're still hooked.
We're still hooked
into think, just as you said, that we can manipulate our way to happiness, or eat our way to happiness, or sex our way to happiness, or achieve our way to happiness.
And goal setting becomes our goals can become a projection in many ways of many of our unmet needs and desires from wounds from our childhood. And we think, well, if I can finally get that thing, then I'm going to be enough. Then okay, and you know, it's going to validate me and make this sense of who I am. Okay, finally, and it never leads to that. It's never enough when we're trying to seek. What we're trying to seek, we'll never find through the manipulation of life, the control of life, the achievement of certain goals. And so for me, the shift in paradigm, at least the first level, you know, in the book, is the shift in paradigm from this idea of what do I want, this limited sense of I, to really a surrender to feeling more deeply the deepest impulse of life, in terms of what is it that life, this intelligence, not my mind, not this ego, not who I think I am, not this conditioned version of what I've identified myself to be, but what is it that life itself is seeking to manifest through me, to express through me, to create through me, to write through me, to art through me, to, you know, to purpose through me. What is it that life, when I just open, surrender and open, to me, surrender is just being open. It's the openness, the availability. When I truly surrender in the openness, what is the deepest impulse of what life is seeking to express through me? And the willingness to be lived by that. What would happen if I truly allowed life to live?
Yes.
You know, that depth of intelligence, that is the source of existence. And so that's kind of the invitation of the book, Hale. It's like the magic. When I say magic, and I'm not talking about surrender as some kind of, shall we say, formula. That's why I want people to be really clear, because I think there's kind of this idea of surrender, but it becomes a fake surrender, which I call fake surrender simply this idea of surrender where oh, I'll surrender if.
Right. There's the rub. As soon as you add if.
I'll surrender so that X, Y, Z.
Exactly.
Oh, I'll surrender this relationship, Hale, so that she'll come back to me, right?
Right.
So surrender becomes another system, another formula, another strategy hijacked by the ego to get what it thinks it wants again,
Right.
And so to me, when I talk about surrender, it's more from a place of surrendering. One is with conditions and one is really without conditions.
Right.
Surrendering when you just stop negotiating with life and take the conditions off of life itself, and say, I surrender. I surrender my sense of separateness. I surrender my sense of who I think I surrender. And in that surrender, there's no conditions. In that surrender, how should we say it? In that surrender, there's no projection of what you think will happen once you surrender. There's no projection, because even the best projection is still from the mind, which is conditioned from the past. So even when we project what will happen when we surrender, the best projection will still be a limited version rooted in our past conditioning, our ego, our identity in some way, shape, or form. But when we truly surrender, I think there is a true expansiveness of, I have no freaking idea. I have no idea what the hell will happen on the other side. All I know is life is leading me here. The energy of life is moving in this direction. The momentum of the flow of intelligence is just going here. I don't know why. I can't explain why. All I know is this is where it's moving. And so I think the real surrender is trusting that energy and living in a way. How do we live in a way where we trust that energy? I think when we truly do surrender in that sense, we're in the flow. And when we're in the flow, we go beyond me living to being lived. And I think that's when, at least that's when I've observed, that's an experience, that's when the magic happens. When I say magic, it's not a hocus pocus thing. When I say magic, it's that which is beyond what we can imagine, that which is beyond what we could strategize and plan. When I say magic, I'm looking at, let's say, a Mandela. How do you strategically goal set and plan a Mandela? How do you strategically goal set and plan out a Mother Teresa, a Martin Luther King? At some point, there's a surrender that happened for them to go, okay, I have to let go. In that letting go, life started to live them. And what life did through them as vessels and vehicles, I think was way more than they could have logically, linearly done on their own. And so I think that's why I call it the magic of surrender. Like, if you want the magic, whatever that is, let's find out. We'll find out. You got to surrender. And so that's the invitation of the book,
That's a beautiful invitation.
What if you got more? Not less. What if you got more? And so the willingness, though, I think we have to have the willingness to let go of the idea that we know.
That's important.
Yeah. This idea that we know, because I think in so many ways, and I've seen this in my life, in so many ways, we project onto a situation, we project onto a moment, this thing that we know what this is, and we know what this isn't, and we know what she or he isn't, and our ability to know what something is in a given moment is limited by our own identity and our own conditioning and our own perspective. And so many times what we think is reality is not really reality. It's just the perception based on our own sort of ego's attachment in a particular moment. And so what we see is not necessarily, most of the time, is not the reality. And,
Yes.
and then we live our life based on that limited perspective or lens or interpretation, thinking we're free, and we're not. And so I think in so many ways we don't even realize how we're actually limiting the fullness of life's expression. And so that's really the invitation.
Yeah, that's very well said. Very well said. A couple of follow-on questions from what you said. First off, I assume when you mentioned Mother Teresa and Mandela and some of the, and who was the other person? Doesn't matter.
Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King, yeah. Those, when you mention wonderful people like that, sometimes people will think, well, I'm not like that. I'm not a Martin Luther King. But isn't everybody in their essence that same surrender that they were living?
Yeah. I think this might sound harsh, but I think it can be a cop-out for us to say, oh, they're special.
Right, exactly. Yes, yes. Say more about that.
Yeah. You know, Mother Teresa, she was just special. You know, Mandela, he was just special. Because when we say that they're special, then we don't have to really open and let go, because they were just born that way. They were meant to be that. Then we can abdicate any sense of anything. And so I think we all, inside of us, we are all a spark of the infinite.
Yes.
We are all a spark of that one source of life. And when I look at someone like Mandela, the depth of his, I can't, like, I never met him, but I can only imagine, 27 years in prison. Hell, 27 years. What a cosmic, creation of a life, right? 27 years in prison. The depth of surrender he must have tapped into, whether he called it surrender or not. But the depth of surrender he must have tapped into to expand into that, to participate with that experience, to tap into the depth, the level of, on a physical, mental, emotional, human, psychological, biological, physiological level, to tap into that level of compassion and empathy and vision and kindness that perhaps it took 27 years for his mind-body mechanism, on a human level, to perhaps be capable and able to really be ready to resonate at that level that was truly able to fulfill what was needed to be fulfilled in his lifetime. Mm-hmm. And so, slight side note, but I'm thinking, from the level of the ego, 27 years, that sounds like torture and hell. Mm-hmm. But from the bigger perspective, the level of consciousness was the perfect, necessary, perhaps ripening, simmering, cooking, that was necessary as a part of his human trajectory to prepare him. And so I think we all have that spark of the infinite. It's what we all are.
Yes.
It's the source of us all. And so in that sense, if anything, perhaps Mandela was able to surrender. He was able to participate in the process of surrendering and trusting the unfolding of his life, the unfolding of life through him in a way. And so I think perhaps our greatness is determined by our surrender, or the degree to which life can flow through us may be determined by our surrender. And so I think surrender, I think, is the password to freedom, to joy, to fulfillment, to happiness, just the surrender. And so when I look at Mother Teresa and Gandhi and Mandela, to me, they're just possibilities. You know, Jesus, you know, who realized his true nature, you know, when he said, I and my Father are one. I and my, to me, that's not blasphemy. That's just him speaking reality of his realization of truth. That he was just then inviting us all as human beings into that level of truth. He realized his Christ nature, which we all have that Christ nature as our own ground of being. And, you know, I love it because I growing up, I'd hear Jesus, the quotes of Jesus. He would say something like, the things that I do, you can do these things and more. And so he wasn't saying, hey, I'm just special and you can never do this. It was like, the things I do, you can do these and more. But he also said, it's not I that does the work.
Right.
It's the Father that does the work through me, the Father, consciousness, life, the whatever label, universe, the infinite intelligence, that does the work through me. So Jesus also knew it's not I that does it. I'm not really the one doing it. I'm not just do a thing that's going to do it. It's life that does it. And I think that was a level of surrender, surrendering this sense of, you know, I-ness, which I think many times can seem scary for us too as human beings.
Oh, of course. Yeah. If we think we're that limited I, we don't want to let that go.
Of course, of course.
But isn't that surrender, isn't that built into the system on some level? If you're not surrendering, you surrender each experience without realizing it. That everything we experience, it comes into awareness, it has its moment in the sun, and then it disappears.
Yes.
And it sounds like what you're encouraging people to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, is just bringing that more in the forefront and cooperating. Most of us live in resistance to what is, as opposed to a humble, open-hearted surrender to what is as it is.
Yeah. I mean, surrender is the nature of existence, I think.
Yes.
Life. There's no way. I mean, we're being surrendered each moment.
Yes.
Whether we like it or not, we can resist it. We cannot resist it. There's no. It's happening. Every breath is a surrender.
That's right.
Every hair falling off is a surrender.
Right.
But I do think that the more we're able to, you know, to me, part of the authentic surrender is that open-hearted participation.
Yes.
With the process of life. That open. Yes. That's why it's interesting that the picture on the front of the book, which I hated so much, by the way, is a picture of me, you know, on a beach like this. Now, when I took that picture, Hale, I had no idea that was going to be the book cover. I just took some pictures on a beach in Mexico. Yes. It's like this. When my publisher saw it, she's like, that's the book cover. I said, hell no. Obviously it is. But it's like, it's a full participation with the experience of life, whatever it is in the moment that's unfolding. Good, bad, these are just judgments from a perspective of the limited perspective of the ego, because sometimes even the worst things end up being the best things in retrospect. And so when we're able to fully surrender and participate in the process of what's happening, because part of what's happening is part of our own evolutionary journey of our own consciousness, you know? And so I think that's the joy, you know, to really say, okay, I'm here, I'm in this human body, I'm in this human experience, I'm not the body, but here it is, I'm not this form, but here I am. This experience is maybe not what I would like, but what would happen if I truly gave up the resistance and surrendered and learned what I needed to learn in this situation, grew how I needed to grow from this relationship, you know, evolved how I needed to evolve in this job, in this dynamic. And as a result, see where that took me, see where life moved me. I think that's part of the surrender. What I will say, I think that there is, maybe you have something to say about this here. I think that there is a difference between acceptance and surrender. And I think you talked about the resistance to surrender. I think there's a phase in the middle between acceptance and surrender. And maybe why we sometimes don't always move into the authentic, wholehearted participation with what's happening. And so I think in acceptance, it's like, okay, you accept what is. Accept what is. It is what it is. But I think, and this is me, I think you can accept what is, but not be like rolling your sleeves up and say, okay, I'm going to participate fully.
Right. It's a definitional.
It's a definitional thing. So I'm playing with the definition, but I think there can be an like, okay, I accept who my husband is, but I don't really like who they are. Right. So I'll kind of withhold a bit of my love because I want them to, I accept it. I'm not going to leave. He is what he is. But I guess I'm saying surrender is when you say, okay, I accept what it is. And I'm going to wholeheartedly bring my all to it, to learn, to grow, to participate with life so that I can evolve and see what happens. You know, yes. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but it won't be because I withheld. It was because I gave everything to this relationship, as an example, the situation. I accepted it, but I didn't pout on the sidelines. I gave my all to the situation, and maybe we broke up and went in separate directions. But I got the evolutionary journey and lessons from this experience. But what I do think is, and this is something to consider, I think, is to a degree, surrender is a death. You know, it's a death of an idea, a death of maybe the life we thought we should have, or the life we thought we should be living based on our ego's kind of conditioned concept. And so I think sometimes, not always the case, but sometimes a phase that can be missing is grieving, which I don't always hear connected in the spiritual, scene, talking about surrender. But I do feel that it's important to at least honor, because I think when you surrender, there can be, not all the time, a level of grief, because something is dying. Who you thought you should be, a phase of one's life, the idea of one's separation, there's something that is being let go of. Mm-hmm. And I think when we sometimes deny the grief, not that we are the grief, and I'm certainly not saying wallow in the grief, but I think when we sometimes deny the grief, sometimes we deny the grief because we're afraid it will be too overwhelming, or we're afraid it will last forever, and or sometimes the denial of the grief can be a way to actually even hold on to what we're afraid of losing, because if I don't really feel the grief, then I can still hold on to that person or that situation. Sometimes I think we can, as a spiritual bypass, deny the grief. It's like everything is good, everything is God, everything is great. And we can deny the grief sometimes too, because I think we want to stay in we can get addicted to staying in a high vibe. And so I think just to consciously, intentionally surrender to honoring one's humanity, and acknowledging the grief, knowing that no feelings last forever. When we accept them, when we be with them, when we experience them fully, when we're willing to, as you know, willing to let them go, willing to release them. I think all feelings just have a natural cycle of dissolving. And so I think when we truly can honor the grief and let that energy, let that emotion go, then I think we can also open to the new relationship, the new connection, the new possibility as well. And so I think there is a space for honoring grieving in the process of surrender at
Sure.
the same time,
Absolutely. Well, it's an honoring of whatever comes up. In other words, some people will have grief, some people will have fear, some people may
Yes.
even have anger.
Yes.
Some people will have to face their pride in how good they were at manipulating life. So there's needs. I agree with you 100%. I think there needs to be a willingness to feel whatever comes up, to the contrary of just being that open vehicle for what is. That which we're not believes that it is in charge and it needs to manipulate every second. And as we see through that, the structure that was built up around that starts to come apart.
Yeah.
And so there is this this letting go that happens naturally of all the thoughts and feelings and beliefs and ideas that were built into this belief in being the manipulator of life and the conqueror of life and the person, that separate individual that's in charge of what's happening. And as you see through that whole illusion, there's two things that happen. One, it's not all suffering. There's actually something very exquisite about it. There's this peace and this joy and this openness and this lightness. And none of those words do it justice, but it brings up everything to the contrary. And I'm glad you brought up the grieving, because it's important to honor the process of whatever comes up, because that's all a gift too. That's all part of the surrender.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, good. So, and the other thing is I wanted to ask you about isn't the ultimate surrender is recognizing that there's no one even doing that?
I would definitely agree. Ultimately, yes.
Yes.
There's no one even doing that, really.
Yes.
For sure.
Cool. I keep bringing you to silence. I apologize. It's not good for conversations. It's good if we were just sitting, the two of us, but this is being recorded, and we need to keep going. So I have another follow-on question. I think we'll get you speaking again. So that has to do with, in your book, do you give people pointers of things they can do to actively participate in this process? And what would some of those be?
Sure. There's one kind of practical thing I talk about in the book, just as a beginning point. And it's an invitation to look in your life at where you are not telling the truth to yourself. Where are you actually, well, let's just say, lying to yourself? And maybe it's not intentionally lying or in your mind going, oh, I'm going to lie about this, but just really looking at, what am I, because many times when we're lying to ourselves reveals what and where we are resisting, what we're not wanting to truly acknowledge and just be with fully. And the lie is a way to not be with that fully. And so we lie as a resistance. We lie as a way to negotiate the deeper truth that's there for us to just be with, feel through. We lie so that we don't have to maybe feel certain things. And so that can lead to a deeper opening and a deeper surrender. And so the invitation is, really sit with, what are you lying to yourself about? Maybe it's, let's be practical. Maybe you're in a relationship and deep down, it's not right. It's not aligned. It's not, this is not it. You're not in love. It's no longer aligned. It's no longer resonating. You're not growing. It's been over for years. sit with that and cultivate the honesty. And I tell people, you don't even have, it's not so much about taking action on it.
Right.
Part of the process of surrendering is just taking a step. It's not about, sometimes we're afraid to tell ourselves the truth because we're afraid of the consequences and having to take action. So we don't tell ourselves the truth and we keep ourselves stuck in a certain loop.
Yes.
And so that's why I just tell people, sit with, okay, what lies am I telling myself? And just be with that. Just surrender to that and be with the feelings that come up around that. Maybe you're working a job that is so not aligned with who you are, and you've been in this for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and your soul and your spirit is feeling perhaps constricted. And the truth might be just saying, you know what, I hate my job. I really dislike my job. It's not for me. This is the truth. Be with that. You don't have to leave, take all the pressure off. And once you just be with the truth, feel what you feel. Once you be with the truth, without any judgment, without any justification, without trying to shift or change anything, see what feelings truly arise when you be with that. And I think that can start moving someone in a process of deeper surrender to what's real. Mm-hmm. And so I think in certain ways, there usually is a level of, shall we say, pain when we're not in alignment. I think pain can be a gift if we pay attention.
Definitely.
I think pain can be a powerful evolutionary catalyst if we're aware and if we're present to it as a teacher, to show us where we're off, where we're not honoring, right, where we're not really listening.
Yes.
And the challenge is, I think, as human beings, in many ways, we've been so conditioned to distract ourselves from the pain. We eat it away, we sex it away, we drink it away, we social media it away, we drug it away, whatever it is, so we don't fully be with the pain, but the pain will tend to manifest in different ways when we're not with it. The pain will tend to manifest as some physical illness, some physical ailment, some dis-ease. The pain will tend to manifest in many ways. Sometimes in the people we attract that play out the pain that we're suppressing, we're not yes. being with fully. The pain will sometimes manifest in our lives. Things stop flowing, the energy of our life stops flowing, gets stagnant. And so I think if we're able to realize, tell the truth, feel the truth, acknowledge and be with the pain, and let it move through, and use that as a way to just feel deeper. I think that's a place to start in terms of surrender.
No, that's a wonderful place to start, because if we're saying no to the pain, it just on an experiential level, it just magnifies it, and yes. and then it becomes a barrier to that natural surrender that is life. Yeah, well said. Thank you. And do you have a suggestion for people, a challenge or something they can work on? They wanted to spend a day, a week, a month.
I mean, it could go in a few different directions.
Well, it doesn't matter which one you pick. Pick one that you think people will like.
This is one I've tried, but I think it would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was let's say a 24-hour challenge or something.
Sure.
like a weekend, a Sunday, where for one day you make no plan, no agenda, and all you do in this one day is you just commit to tuning in to the impulse, the deeper impulse of your being, and feeling where it nudges you. So you're paying attention to the subtle sense and the nudgings of your being. Because many times, here's the thing, the universe life doesn't always speak to us with this loud siren bell, like
right.
on a
right.
big advertising board. Sometimes it's the subtle nudgings, like, hey, go there, go turn left. Or it's not even that, it's just like a wind, just in this direction. And we don't pay attention, like, no, that's crazy. And so I think the more we can start cultivating this sensitivity to not question, we get into it and just, I'm feeling something nudging me here. No idea why, no idea where it's going, no agenda. For one day, listen to the nudgings, the authentic nudgings that move you in a direction, and go on an adventure and see where that leads you. Like you wake up, it's okay, something says go to downtown, let's say you're in LA, downtown LA, and go to 6th and Grand. Don't question. Go to 6th and Grand, see what's there. Once you get there, feel what the nudging arises, and you just, for an entire day, keep following those nudgings and just see what unfolds, see where that leads you. You don't have to know, but at worst case, it will be a great practice in attuning to the nudgings of your being as a refinement process. At best case, who knows what might happen.
That's right.
Hey, I did that for 6 days a few years back. I literally I arrived into, I had 6 days where I didn't have to be in LA. And I arrived into Tom Bradley from Bali, okay, Indonesia. I did an event there, arrived to Bali. Like, I have 6 days. Should I go home or should I keep going? I go to Tom Bradley International. I have no idea where I'm going. I said, I'm going to try this surrender nudging thing. I go to I see Philippines counter. You have a flight going to Philippines, 11, how much is it? Okay, nope. I go to a flight to Hong Kong. I forget the airlines. A flight to Hong Kong is like, well, we have a flight to Hong Kong. Nope. I see Qantas Air. It's like, I go there, sit in front of the Qantas Air counter. Yes, sir. Nope. Finally, Hale, I end up in Thai Airlines. I stand in front of Thai Airlines. Now, granted, I just came back from Asia. I stand in front of Thai Airlines. How much is it? $600 one way to Bangkok. I hear a resonance. Yes, my mind is going, what the hell? I just came back from, this is crazy. This is insane. This is like, you said you were going to listen to this nudging, and this nudging is moving you here. And you know this nudging is moving you here. So I get on a plane, figuring by the time I arrive into Thailand, I'm going to have clarity. My mind wants clarity. I arrive into Thailand, I have no clarity. I'm like, what the heck? So I just sit still for a moment. I go to the counter again. All I hear a few hours later is Bali. Hale, I just came from Bali. I just came from Bali. So I end up on a flight back to Bali. Okay, no idea. I get picked up by the taxi driver who just dropped me off. He says, but you were just here. And he said, what are you doing here? I said, I have no idea. I spend a night in Bali in a place called Ubud. Wake up the next morning. I'm going to follow the nudging. I'm going to go to a vegan restaurant. I'm about to walk into a vegan restaurant. No, don't go there. So I'm going to go to a fish restaurant, my favorite fish restaurant. No, go to this vegan restaurant. I end up going to this vegan restaurant. Have no idea why I'm here. Sit down. I'm sitting in a restaurant. It's packed. A full table of 6, open, two top, open. Everything else is closed. They seat me at this table of 6. I'm like, I'm sitting here, Hale. No idea why the hell I'm in Bali, Indonesia on New Year's Eve, again, when I was just there 3 days before. Here I am sitting here and I say, okay, universe, I'm going to sit here until you reveal to me what the hell's going on. I'm not going to make a move. All of a sudden, an hour later, I start journaling. An hour later, this man walks through this is in the jungle of Bali. This man walks through this vegan restaurant. My jaw drops because this guy is a media mogul. I've been trying to connect with this guy 15 years ago. Everyone says, you got to connect with this guy. You got to connect with this. He's huge. He's a mogul. He's a gazillionaire. You guys have to do stuff together. I tried to get through to him, Hale, for 10 years. No doors open, no doors open, no doors open, no doors open. I'm sitting in the middle of a jungle in Bali, no idea why I'm there. He walks through the door into this restaurant. My jaw drops. Something says that you got to let things unfold. He walks out because there's no space in the restaurant. His friend comes in, walks around, There's no room on any other table. His friend comes up to me, taps me on the shoulder and says, can me and my friend sit here because you have a big table? I'm like, why? Maybe that's why they put me at this big table. She sits here. The guy walks in, sits right there. She says hi. He says, hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm like, yeah, I think I know your name. We start talking for 3 hours. I don't tell him anything that I've been trying to connect with him for 16 years. He says, take my cell phone. He goes outside, texts me, and he says, we're meant to do stuff together. It's God's plan. How do you explain this stuff?
That's right.
I mean,
that's a good example.
I could go on and on and on, but this would be, I'd say do it for 24 hours, have fun, see what happens.
Well, that's a great encouraging story too, to get people to do it. So everyone, that's just one example of what may happen when you fully surrender.
One example.
But the gift is not just in amazing experiences like that. Isn't the gift in just how it feels?
Oh, Hale, the freedom. The freedom. There's a freedom, at least for me, when I don't have to know anything. When I don't have to constantly know.
Right.
And even when I think I know, I really don't know. It's just
that's
an illusion of knowing anyway.
That's
so
right.
There's a freedom because then you can just be where you are.
That's right.
Experiencing what you're experiencing right here in this moment, right now, not like there's some other place or purpose to get to that's not here. And I think that's the peacefulness there that arises.
Yes. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Kute Blackson. You can learn more about Kute at kuteblackson.com. That's KUTEBLACKSON.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe so you'll have immediate access to future episodes. Please give us a 5-star rating and share it with the people you care about. If you'd like to learn more about my work, my mentor Lester Levenson's work, and the Sedona method, please visit Sedona.com. As you explore our site, you'll learn the key to lasting happiness, success, peace, and emotional well-being. We have books, courses, events, and plenty of free material to explore. Again, go to Sedona.com. That's SEDONA.com. Thank you for being here, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Letting Go and the Greatest Secret.